It all started with an intuition. We, who work intensely on our projects, know every detail of them. And when something goes wrong, we usually know where to look for the fault. But suddenly, my project started making mistakes that I would never make. Small details, but enough to compromise the final result. At first, I thought it was just tiredness or distraction. But the frequency of the problems increased, and it started to worry me. One afternoon, upon returning from lunch, I noticed something strange. My desk was slightly out of place, as if someone had disturbed my belongings. My computer, which I always left locked, had the screen on. And that's when I saw her. Ashley, my coworker, was quickly typing something on my keyboard. "Ashley?" I called, trying to hide my shock. She raised her head quickly, with a surprised expression that she quickly tried to hide with a smile. "Oh, John," she replied, getting up quickly. "I was just leaving a message for you. Mark asked me to remind you about tomorrow's meeting." "Got it, thanks for letting me know," I said, trying to sound natural. She left my table with a smile that seemed forced to me. I sat down and started going through my files. Nothing seemed out of place, but distrust was already planted. It was an uncomfortable feeling, as if something was being carefully manipulated behind the scenes. That night, I went home thinking about all the times something went wrong on my projects. I mentally reviewed all the failed presentations, corrupted files, and mysteriously disappearing data. And then, the penny dropped. Ashley was always there when something went wrong. She made it seem like she was helping me, but in reality, she was always there when problems arose. The next day, I decided it was time to act, but I needed to be discreet. I couldn't confront her directly without proof. I began to observe his movements more closely, noticing small details that had previously gone unnoticed. She always seemed to know exactly where to look for information and asked specific questions about my projects, as if she were trying to identify weaknesses. One morning, while we were having coffee in the pantry, I decided to probe her a little. "Ashley, have you ever had problems with projects not going as planned?" I asked, casually. She laughed, taking a sip of her coffee. "Oh, who hasn't?" he replied, with a smile. "But that's the way it is, John. The important thing is not to get discouraged and keep trying." "True, but sometimes it seems like problems come from where we least expect them, doesn't it?" I insisted, observing his reaction. She looked at me with a look that seemed to assess whether I knew something. "Yes, it could be," she said, after a brief pause. "But it's part of the job, isn't it?" That evasive answer only increased my suspicions. I decided I needed concrete proof. I installed monitoring software on my computer, capable of recording all activities carried out on the machine. I began documenting her every strange behavior and keeping evidence in a safe place. Over the next few weeks, I watched Ashley closely. She continued to go through my files when I wasn't around, deleted important emails, and even manipulated data. Her every action was carefully recorded and stored. I knew that to expose her I would need an overwhelming amount of evidence. It was an exhausting but necessary period. Every day, my suspicions were confirmed more. And that's when I realized I couldn't do this alone. I needed allies, people who might have been through the same situations. And so, without arousing suspicion, I began discreetly talking to other colleagues, discovering that I wasn't the only one harmed by Ashley's actions. When I decided it was time to take action against Ashley, I knew I needed to be extremely careful. Every step had to be meticulously planned to ensure I had irrefutable proof. I started with something simple, a diary where I wrote down all suspicious occurrences. But I soon realized that this would not be enough. He needed concrete evidence, something he could show the board without leaving any doubt. It was then that I decided to install monitoring software on my computer. I knew Ashley had a habit of going through my things when I wasn't around. And that's exactly what the software confirmed. One afternoon, when I returned from my weekly meeting, I found my computer turned on, but the screen was locked. Later, when reviewing the software logs, I saw that Ashley had accessed important documents and deleted some emails crucial to my project. "Emily, I need to talk to you. Can you come to my table?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Of course, John. What happened?" Emily replied, curious. "I'm starting to put the pieces together here. There's something really strange going on, and I think Ashley is behind it." Emily frowned. "Are you sure? This is serious. I don't have concrete proof yet, but I'm working on it." "I need your help to make sure I'm not going crazy," he said, showing her some of the logs he had collected. She looked intently at the screens and then at me. "This is serious, John. It looks like you're on the right track. What else can we do?" "I'll continue monitoring. I'll also start collecting printed emails and screenshots of anything suspicious. If you can, keep an eye on her and see if you notice anything strange," I ordered. "Leave it. I'm with you on this one," she nodded. With Emily's support, I felt more confident. From then on, I started documenting every detail. If an important email disappeared or data was manipulated, I had a screenshot to prove it. I started organizing everything into folders, each labeled with dates and detailed descriptions. As time passed, the amount of evidence grew. Each day had something new to add to my dossier. Late one night at the office, I ran into Michael Collins, another coworker who had also been harmed by Ashley. He was exhausted, and I took the opportunity to talk to him. "Michael, have you also noticed strange things happening with your projects?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He sighed deeply. "Yes, John. But I have no way of proving it. It seems like everything I do goes wrong, even when I know I did everything right." "I understand exactly how you feel," I replied, showing him some of the evidence I had already collected. "I'm starting to put this all together to expose Ashley. I need your help." Michael looked at the evidence with a mixture of surprise and relief. "You have courage, John." "Of course, I'm in. I can't take this anymore." With Michael on board, our covert operation gained even more momentum. We each had a specific task. I continued monitoring and collecting evidence, Emily kept an eye on Ashley, and Michael began discreetly speaking to other colleagues to see if they too had been harmed. Before long, we realized that Ashley had a history of manipulation that affected multiple people in the office. Each new victim brought more evidence, and our dossier became increasingly robust. The feeling that we were about to turn the tables was palpable. "We're almost there," Emily said in one of our secret meetings. "We just need a plan to present it all. Let's lay it all out at the quarterly board meeting," I suggested. "If we do this right, there will be no argument." Everyone agreed, and we began to draft our plan. Every detail was thought out carefully, from the order of evidence to who would speak at each moment. We knew we only had one chance to do this right. Gathering evidence was hard, painstaking work, but it was the foundation on which we built our case. With each new test, our objective became clearer and the courage to face Ashley grew within us. We were ready for the battle that was to come. When I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together and realized that Ashley was sabotaging my projects, I knew I couldn't face this battle alone. The atmosphere in the office was already tense, and confronting Ashley directly could put me in an even more vulnerable position. I then decided that I needed allies. The first step was to talk to Emily Davis. We always had a good working relationship, and I knew she was an ethical and trustworthy person. One afternoon, while we were having coffee in the break room, I broached the subject subtly. "Emily, do you ever get the feeling that someone in the office is messing with your projects?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She frowned, clearly surprised by the question. "What do you mean, John? Do you think someone is sabotaging your work?" I took a deep breath and decided to be honest. "Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And I think it's Ashley." Emily's eyes widened. "Ashley? Wow, this is serious. Do you have proof?" "I'm gathering evidence." I installed monitoring software on my computer and I've already managed to record some of her suspicious actions. But I need more information and, if possible, more witnesses. Have you ever had any problems with her? Emily paused, as if she was reflecting on something. Now that you mention it, yes. A few weeks ago, I was working on an important report and, out of nowhere, my file disappeared. I thought it was my mistake, but now I'm thinking maybe it wasn't. Emily's confirmation gave me a boost of confidence. Would you mind helping me collect more evidence? If we can prove that she's sabotaging our colleagues' work, we can expose her. She nodded, determined. Of course, John. This can't go on. With Emily by my side, I felt like I was on the right path. But I knew we needed more support. It was then that I thought of Michael Collins. He was one of Ashley's most disadvantaged colleagues, always having his projects delayed or damaged in some way. I decided to approach him at an opportune time. Michael, do you have a minute? I asked, finding him in the office kitchen. Of course, John. What happened? He replied, looking curious. Emily and I are investigating possible sabotage here at the office. We think Ashley is behind it. Have you ever had any problems with her? Michael was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. Now that you mention it, yes. My projects always end up going wrong in some way, even if I follow everything to the letter. I thought it was my incompetence, but if you have evidence against it, I'm in. I shared with him some of the evidence I had already gathered and explained our plan of action. We need to collect more evidence and testimony. If we can put together a solid case, we can present it at the next quarterly board meeting. Michael readily agreed. Count me in. Ashley can't keep hurting everyone with impunity. With Emily and Michael by my side, we formed a little secret alliance. We spent the next few days exchanging information and collecting more evidence. Every deleted email, every changed file, every malicious comment was recorded and stored. Little by little, our case against Ashley became more and more robust. Our conversations were always discreet, often held outside the office to avoid suspicion. In one of these meetings, Emily brought up an idea that could be the key to our success. What if we prepare a detailed presentation with all the evidence and present it at the quarterly meeting with the board, she suggested. Michael and I exchanged approving glances. That's perfect, I agreed. If we do this well, there will be no way for the board to ignore what's going on. And so, with our alliances formed and a plan in mind, we prepared to expose Ashley and restore integrity to our work environment. The battle was just beginning, but with Emily and Michael by my side, I felt like we were ready to face any challenge. Planning Ashley's exhibition was no easy task. I knew we needed to be meticulous and precise in every detail to ensure our accusations were taken seriously. We decided that the quarterly board meeting would be the ideal time to reveal everything. This was a very important meeting, where all the directors would be present and where we could have the attention of Mark Thompson, the company's director. To start, I called a secret meeting with Emily and Michael at my house. Sitting in my living room, surrounded by stacks of documents and open laptops, we began to map out our plan. We need to be strategic, I said, looking at them seriously. Every part of the presentation must be irrefutable. Emily nodded, adjusting her glasses and looking at her laptop. I have some screenshots of emails that Ashley deleted or manipulated. We can show this as solid proof. Michael, who was reviewing a report on a project that had been sabotaged, added, and I have statements from other colleagues who were also harmed. They are all willing to speak out if necessary. We spent hours organizing the evidence. We created a detailed timeline of Ashley's actions, showing how she had systematically sabotaged projects. We also gathered testimonies from colleagues who had been affected by his maneuvers. Every detail mattered, and we wanted to make sure we didn't leave any gaps for her to defend herself. We need an impactful visual presentation, I suggested, as I frantically typed on my laptop. Something that captures attention and makes it clear how serious this is. Emily, who had notable graphic design skills, was in charge of creating the presentation slides. I'm going to do something that's impossible to ignore, she assured with a determined smile. Meanwhile, Michael and I focused on compiling and organizing all the evidence. Every email, every screenshot, every testimonial has been carefully cataloged. We spent several sleepless nights reviewing and refining the presentation. We wanted to ensure that there was no doubt about the veracity of our accusations. During one of those long nights, Michael looked at me, visibly tired but determined. "John, are you sure you're prepared for what might happen? This is going to change everything." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I know this will be difficult, Michael. But it's the right thing to do. We need to expose the truth and restore justice to the office." Supported by Emily and Michael, I felt more confident. I believed that, united, we would be able to face any adversity. We talked about how we would approach the meeting, who would present which parts, and how we would respond to potential questions or attacks. Finally, after weeks of exhaustive preparation, our plan was ready. We decided that I would open the presentation, explaining the situation in a clear and direct way. Emily would continue with the technical and visual details, and Michael would conclude with the testimonies and impacts of Ashley's actions. The day before the meeting, we met one last time to review everything. Sitting in my living room, the atmosphere was tense, but there was a sense of determination in the air. "We're ready," I said, looking at my colleagues. "Tomorrow, everything will change." Emily nodded. "Let's show the truth. They need to know." Michael smiled, but his eyes were serious. "Ashley won't know what hit her." And so, with a meticulous and well-prepared plan, we were ready for Ashley's exhibition. We knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we were determined to fight for justice and integrity in our workplace. When deciding that the quarterly meeting would be the perfect time to expose Ashley, we knew we couldn't leave anything to chance. With Emily and Michael by my side, we began working feverishly over the next few nights, often well into the early hours. Every detail needed to be meticulously planned to ensure that our accusation was irrefutable. "John, here's the screenshot of the email Ashley deleted," Emily said, handing me a printout. "I think this will be crucial in showing that she was deliberately withholding information." "Perfect, Emily," I replied, taking the sheet and adding it to our growing dossier of evidence. "And Michael, did you get those statements from your colleagues?" "Yes," replied Michael, with a serious expression. "I spoke to Sarah and Tom. They confirmed that they also had projects sabotaged by Ashley. They are willing to testify if necessary." "Great work, guys," I said, feeling a rush of gratitude for having such dedicated allies. "We have to make sure nothing is left out. Every deleted email, every manipulated piece of data, every malicious comment, everything needs to be here." We spent hours organizing the evidence. Each item was cataloged and numbered, and we created a detailed timeline to show Ashley's pattern of behavior. The screenshots from the monitoring software I installed on my computer were particularly revealing. They showed Ashley accessing my files, changing data, and even sending emails in my name to cause confusion. "Do you think this will be enough?" asked Emily, with a mixture of anxiety and hope in her voice. "It has to be," I replied, closing the laptop and rubbing my tired eyes. "If we can't convince the board with this, I don't know what else could work." The next day, we set up one last meeting before the meeting to go over everything one last time. Emily brought coffee for everyone and Michael arrived with a stack of documents. "Good morning, team," Emily said, handing out the cups. "Let's make this work." "Yes, let's go," I agreed, picking up my coffee and feeling the caffeine invigorate me. "Let's review the presentation from start to finish once again." We turn on the projector and start. The first part of the presentation was an introduction to the problem, explaining in an objective and direct way how projects were being sabotaged. We then move on to the evidence, showing screenshots, printed emails, and testimonials from colleagues. Each item was accompanied by a clear and concise explanation. "We have to be assertive, but not emotional," Michael said, as we discussed the approach. "We need to show professionalism and let the evidence speak for itself." "I agree," Emily said. We will stay focused on the evidence and avoid any personal attacks. This will strengthen our case. Exactly, I added. Let's focus on showing the truth. Ashley incriminated herself with her actions. After a few hours of rehearsal, we all felt we were ready. The tension was palpable, but there was also a sense of relief in the air. We were ready to finally bring the truth to light. So, that's it, Emily said, closing the folder with the evidence. We are ready for the meeting. Yes, we are, I replied, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. Let's do this for ourselves and for everyone who was harmed by Ashley. The moment we left the makeshift meeting room, I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. We knew the battle was far from over, but we were ready to face the challenge. Thanks, guys, he said, looking at Emily and Michael. I couldn't have done it without you. We're in this together, John, Michael replied, placing a hand on my shoulder. Let's show the truth, Emily said with determination. And ensure a fair work environment for everyone. With that, we headed to the meeting room, ready to face the storm that was coming. The day of the quarterly meeting has finally arrived. The atmosphere in the conference room was charged with tension and expectation. I could feel the nervousness in the air, not just because of the importance of the meeting itself, but because of what was about to be revealed. Ashley entered the room with her usual confidence, giving me a quick look of superiority. Little did she know what was about to happen. Good morning, everyone, began Mark Thompson, the director, in his firm, authoritative tone. Today we have several important points to discuss, but first, John Parker has a presentation he would like to share with us. I stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. Emily and Michael, sitting next to me, gave me encouraging looks. I took a deep breath and started. Thank you, Mark. Over the past few months, I have noticed a number of irregularities in my projects, and after careful investigation, I discovered that I was not alone. What I will show below is concrete evidence of sabotage within our team. Ashley's expression instantly changed. She went from a relaxed posture to visible tension. I turned on the projector and began displaying the manipulated emails, screenshots, and testimonials I had collected. This first slide shows an email I sent to the client, and next to it, the version that was changed before reaching the recipient. Mark frowned and leaned forward. John, are you saying someone within the company altered your correspondence? Exactly, Mark. And it wasn't just once. I continued, showing several instances of data and information manipulation. With each new piece of evidence presented, the room became quieter. Ashley was pale, trying unsuccessfully to hide her discomfort. But, that's ridiculous. Ashley finally exploded. You're accusing me without concrete evidence. That's hard evidence, Ashley, Emily said, standing up. And it's not just John's projects that were sabotaged. Michael and I were also victims of his actions. Michael stood up then. Here is a statement from our most important client confirming that he received erroneous information, and here are the system logs showing that these changes were made from your computer, Ashley. Mark Thompson, clearly shaken, took a deep breath before speaking. Ashley, these are very serious accusations. What do you have to say in your defense? Ashley tried to maintain her composure, but her voice was shaking. This is a conspiracy. They're all against me. Against you? Michael responded indignantly. We're just exposing the truth. You spent months sabotaging our work to promote yourself, and now that you're being found out, you try to play the victim? Mark stood up and slowly walked to the front of the room. I think we've heard enough. John, Emily, Michael, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Ashley, based on the evidence presented, we will begin an immediate internal investigation. Until then, you are relieved of your duties. The room was in absolute silence. Ashley, without having anything else to say, grabbed her things and left hurriedly, without looking at anyone. When the door closed behind her, I felt an immense relief, as if a gigantic weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Mark turned to us. I want to thank everyone for having the courage to bring this to light. We will make sure a situation like this never happens again at this company." After the meeting, Emily, Michael, and I met for coffee. "We did it," Emily said, smiling. "Yes, we did it," I replied, feeling a rush of satisfaction. "But we still have a lot of work to do to ensure the environment here remains fair and collaborative." Michael lifted his coffee cup. "To that, then. To integrity and teamwork." "To integrity and teamwork," we repeated in unison, toasting the new beginning that awaited us. Ashley's fall was a moment I will never forget. There I was, in the center of the meeting room, observing every reaction from my colleagues and, especially, Ashley. The tension was palpable in the air. Mark Thompson, our director, had just announced the internal investigation and Ashley was removed from her duties until further notice. But it wasn't that simple. When Mark finished speaking, Ashley stood up abruptly, her hands visibly shaking. "This is nonsense," she exclaimed, her voice thick with disbelief. "These accusations are false. You can't do this to me." I looked at Emily and Michael, who were sitting next to me. They both nodded slightly, encouraging me to remain calm. We knew the evidence was solid, and now it was only a matter of time before the truth prevailed. "They're not fake, Ashley," I replied firmly, looking her straight in the face. "All evidence was collected meticulously. Every email deleted, every piece of data manipulated. You left a clear trail of your actions." She looked around the room, looking for support, but found only serious, disappointed faces. The board was shocked, and our coworkers, who had suffered from his manipulations, now felt a mixture of relief and justice. "I have always been an exemplary employee," she insisted, voice now shaky. "You are making a big mistake by believing these lies." Mark intervened, his expression stern. "Ashley, the evidence is incontrovertible. We will proceed with the investigation, but until then, you are officially removed from your duties. The company cannot tolerate this type of behavior." Ashley tried to argue further, but her words were overshadowed by the reality of the evidence we had presented. She knew she was trapped. Finally, with a heavy sigh, she picked up her things and left the room, leaving an uncomfortable silence in the air. After Ashley left, Mark looked directly at me. "John, I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. The integrity of our team is paramount, and you played a crucial role in ensuring that." I thanked him with a wave, feeling a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. Emily and Michael also received praise for their courage and support. It was a moment of validation for all of us, especially after fighting against injustice for so long. The following days were intense. The internal investigation began immediately, and the atmosphere in the office was one of anticipation and nervousness. Ashley had been a dominant figure, and her absence created a vacuum that everyone felt. Talking to Emily and Michael became a routine. "Do you think they'll find out more?" asked Emily, as we drank coffee. "I believe so," I replied. "Ashley couldn't have done all of this alone. There's something deeper going on, and the investigation will bring it all to light." Michael nodded. "We need to be prepared for anything. But at least now we know the truth is coming out." And so it was. Shortly afterwards, the investigation revealed that Ashley had accomplices and that one of the directors was involved in a corruption scheme. It was a huge shock for everyone, but also a relief to know that the company was finally cleaning up its practices. Mark Thompson, visibly affected by the findings, took immediate action. The corrupt director was fired, and Ashley faced legal action for fraud. The company began to renew its policies, ensuring a fairer and more collaborative work environment. For me, John Parker, the journey had been arduous but rewarding. My reputation was restored, and I was promoted to a leadership position. With this new responsibility, I made a point of ensuring that integrity prevailed in the work environment. Emily, Michael, and I were a strong, united team, working tirelessly to build a place where everyone could thrive without fear of sabotage. Ashley's fall was a milestone, but it was also a new beginning for all of us. "We're on the right track," Emily said one day as we were reviewing new work policies. "Yes," I agreed. And we will never allow anything like that to happen here again. Michael smiled. Together, we are stronger. We will ensure that integrity and respect are always our priorities. And with that, we move forward, determined to create a brighter and fairer future for everyone in the company. When the dust finally settled after Ashley's exposé, the mood in the office began to change in noticeable ways. The tension that once hung over all of us has given way to a renewed sense of hope and camaraderie. People who were previously afraid to speak out began to open up, sharing their own experiences of sabotage and manipulation. Shortly after the meeting, Mark Thompson, the director, called an all-hands meeting to discuss the new guidelines and policies that would be implemented. He was visibly concerned about the situation, but also determined to make the necessary changes. I remember his words clearly. We are committed to creating a work environment where everyone can thrive without fear of sabotage or manipulation. Starting today, we will review our internal policies and ensure all employees have a safe and fair space to work. My allies, Emily and Michael, and I have become something of the unofficial spokespeople for this new era. We began meeting regularly with other colleagues to discuss improvements to the work environment. At these meetings, which we called integrity meetings, people felt free to share their concerns and suggestions. It was incredible to see how transparency and open communication began to transform the dynamics of the office. One afternoon, after one of these meetings, Emily approached me with a confident smile. "John, do you see how things have changed? People are finally feeling heard and valued," she said, with a sparkle in her eye that I haven't seen in a long time. "Yes, Emily. I never thought I'd see it happen so quickly. But we still have a lot of work to do," I replied, feeling equally hopeful. Michael, who was next to us, nodded. "You know, John, I never thanked you enough for taking the initiative to expose Ashley. If it weren't for you, many of us would still be suffering in silence." "I only did what was right, Michael. And I couldn't have done it without your help," I replied, feeling a surge of gratitude. As time passed, the board began to implement significant changes. One of the first actions was the introduction of an anonymous reporting channel, where employees could report any unethical behavior without fear of retaliation. In addition, workshops on ethics and integrity in the workplace were organized, led by external consultants. These changes did not go unnoticed. Team morale began to improve, and productivity increased remarkably. People began to collaborate more, sharing ideas and projects with a spirit of cooperation that we had never seen before. The environment of distrust and fear was gradually replaced by a feeling of community and mutual support. A clear example of this change was when we started working on an important project for a new client. Before, any project was a source of stress and fierce competition. But now, there was a real sense of teamwork. I remember a meeting where we discussed ideas for the project, and everyone was positively engaged. "I have a suggestion for the marketing campaign," said a colleague, Sarah, who was previously quite private. "Great, Sarah. Let's hear it," I replied, encouraging her to share her idea. She presented a brilliant proposal, which ended up being adopted by the group. It was a moment of victory not only for her, but for all of us, as it showed that a positive environment really led to better results. Over time, I formed even stronger bonds with Emily, Michael, and other colleagues. The trust we developed in each other was fundamental to our productivity and well-being. Together, we began working not only on our individual projects, but also on initiatives to continue improving the work environment. It was as if we were building something bigger than ourselves. The turnaround at the office wasn't just about Ashley's downfall, but about the rebirth of a culture of integrity and respect. We all knew that this transformation was not an end point, but a new beginning. And I, John Parker, was determined to ensure that this new era of justice and collaboration endured. After everything I had been through, I finally felt immense relief when the truth came out. The weeks following the crucial meeting were intense, but worth every effort. The company was in a whirlwind of change, but for me, things started to take a positive turn. One sunny morning, I received a message in my email, invitation for a meeting with the board of directors. My heart accelerated. Would it be now? The long-awaited reward for all the work and courage in facing Ashley? I walked to the meeting room with a mixture of anxiety and expectation. As I walked in, Mark Thompson, the director, smiled warmly. "John, please sit down." I looked around and saw that Emily and Michael were also present. Emily gave me an encouraging look, and Michael nodded discreetly. We were all anxious but confident. Mark began the meeting. "First, I want to thank everyone for being here. You showed courage and integrity in facing an extremely difficult situation. John, Emily, Michael, you are examples of ethics and dedication. That's why the board decided that deserved to be recognized." I couldn't believe it. Mark continued, "John, your determination to bring the truth to light has been inspiring. The board has decided to promote you to project manager. We believe your leadership will be essential in ensuring that situations like this do not happen again." I felt a wave of emotions. "Thank you, Mark. This means a lot to me. I promise I will do my best to maintain integrity and ethics in our work environment." Mark nodded. "I'm sure you'll do a great job, John." Then, he turned to Emily and Michael. "Emily, Michael, you will also be rewarded for your crucial role in exposing Ashley's actions. Emily, you will be our new internal communications coordinator, and Michael, you will take on quality coordination. We are confident that your skills and commitment will contribute significantly to our success." Emily smiled, clearly moved. "Thank you, Mark. I'm so grateful for this opportunity." Michael also expressed his gratitude. "Thanks, Mark. I promise I won't let you down." The meeting continued with discussions about new internal policies that would be implemented to ensure a fairer and more collaborative work environment. The company was determined to learn from past mistakes and create a culture of transparency and respect. After the meeting, I went to my new desk. It was still surreal for me, but at the same time, a sense of accomplishment washed over me. Emily came over and gave me a hug. "Congratulations, John. You deserve this more than anyone." I smiled and returned the hug. "Thank you, Emily. Without you and Michael, none of this would be possible." Michael joined us and laughed. "Now we are the Justice Hunters team. Let's show everyone how it's done." We laughed together, feeling a new and strong camaraderie. The experience brought us together in a way I never imagined possible. We began working in our new roles with renewed enthusiasm, determined to create a work environment where everyone could thrive. The support of colleagues and the trust of management were fundamental to my motivation. Working in an environment where integrity and respect were valued made all the difference. I felt more energized and determined to continue fighting for an ethical workplace. The following weeks were challenging but rewarding. The implementation of new internal policies brought significant changes. People began to feel safer expressing their concerns and suggestions. Communication improved, and collaboration between teams strengthened. The reward was not just promotion and recognition, but the opportunity to make a difference. Having a positive impact on the work environment and seeing the company prosper was the greatest satisfaction. And of course, knowing that Ashley would finally face the consequences of her actions brought a sense of justice that we all craved. I looked to the future with hope and determination. I knew there were still challenges ahead, but I was prepared to face them, with the support of my colleagues and the trust of the board. The reward was more than fair, and I was ready to honor that trust by working tirelessly for an ethical and respectful work environment. After Ashley's exposure and subsequent suspension, the atmosphere in the office began to slowly transform. However, little did we know that the most shocking twist was yet to come. The internal investigation, led by Mark Thompson, was ongoing, and I, John Parker, was eager to see the results. But I never realized how deep the problem really was. One day, Mark called me into his office. "John, can you come here for a moment?" he said in a serious tone. I knew it had to do with the investigation. "Of course, Mark. What happened?" I asked, trying to hide my anxiety. "We discovered something disturbing. Apparently, Ashley was not acting alone. We have reason to believe that one of the directors is involved in a corruption scheme that affects the entire company," Mark revealed, his serious expression reflecting the gravity of the situation. "One of the directors?" I asked in disbelief. "But who?" "I prefer not to reveal names until we are more certain. But we need your help, John. You've already shown that you have a keen eye for detail and a strong work ethic. We need you to continue gathering evidence, but this time, with a greater focus," he explained. I knew the responsibility was great, but I was determined to help clean up our company. "Count me in, Mark. I will do whatever is necessary," I replied firmly. So I started analyzing old documents, financial reports, and emails from directors. During my investigations, I found several suspicious transactions and compromising correspondences. Each new discovery seemed to paint a darker picture of corruption and disloyalty. I shared my findings with Emily and Michael, who were also shocked. "This is a lot bigger than we thought," Emily said, as she looked through one of the emails compromising a specific director. "Yes, but we need to be careful. We cannot accuse anyone without concrete evidence," Michael added. We spent several nights reviewing the evidence until we finally had a solid case. We set up a meeting with Mark and presented everything we had found. He was visibly shaken. "This is very serious," said Mark, rubbing his forehead. "I can't believe this was happening right under my nose. We need to act quickly, before they realize we're on their tail," I suggested. Mark agreed, and the next day he called an emergency board meeting. The atmosphere was tense when he began the presentation. "We have discovered evidence of a corruption scheme involving one of our directors," he announced, looking directly at the suspect. The director in question, Mr. Hudson, turned pale. "This is absurd. I never dash." "Please, Mr. Hudson, let me finish," Mark interrupted, with authority. "We have documents, emails, and financial transactions that prove his participation. And not only that, but also your involvement in Ashley Turner's actions." The room was completely silent. Mr. Hudson tried to defend himself, but the evidence was irrefutable. Mark continued, "In light of this evidence, we are dismissing you immediately and will hand everything over to the appropriate authorities for appropriate legal action." Ashley, who was already suspended, was informed of her dismissal and that she would also be prosecuted for fraud. Their fall caused a mixture of relief and shock in the company. After these events, the company began to prosper again, free from negative influences. Employee morale improved and a new sense of integrity and transparency was established. Mark called me into his office again. "John, you really outdid yourself. Your dedication and ethics are exactly what we need in leading this company. I would like to offer you a promotion to a leadership position." I accepted the promotion with gratitude, but also with the awareness of the weight of responsibility. "Thanks, Mark. I promise that I will do everything in my power to ensure that integrity prevails here." And so, not only was my reputation restored, but I also took on a crucial role in building a more fair and collaborative work environment. The final turnaround not only exposed corruption, but also redefined the power dynamics in the company, allowing us all to move forward with greater confidence and integrity.